President Trump's trade war with American allies. Tariffs on imported goods are now at their highest levels since the Great Depression. Products from Mexico and Canada are exempt from those duties if and only if they comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. Otherwise, Mexican imports face 25% tariffs, while Canadian goods face 35%. Joining us now is the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. Premier Ford, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, President Trump negotiated the agreement with Canada and Mexico during his first term to replace NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. You say, and now he could suddenly, all of a sudden, open up the USMCA. What makes you think that?
Well, first of all, I start off every interview with saying how much we love Americans, how much we love the U.S. And as I've said on this show many times, that a tariff on Canada is a tax on the American people. And as you've seen, the study from Yale, it's going to cost Americans $2,400. Manufacturing employment in the U.S., there's over 37,000 people since April have lost their jobs. It's the lowest rate in 5 years, and it's just not working. Let's create the AMCAN fortress, two strongest countries in the world. Again, this is hurting the American people as the rest of the countries, including Canada, is diversifying our trade. We're seeing a 25% increase in trade with the European Union. The UK is up by 30%. So as we're diversifying and onshoring products, the American people are losing their jobs.
What would the impact be for Canada and for the U.S. if President Trump pulled out of that agreement?
Well, it would be unfortunate. We directly employ, just Ontario alone, 9 million Americans, and across the entire country of Canada is probably closer to 20 million Americans rely on Canada for jobs, and vice versa. We rely on jobs with trade with the U.S., but it's just hurting both countries. And as we're diversifying and the rest of the world's diversifying, onshoring products that are typically made in the U.S., no matter if it's aluminum cans or tins or steel beams, we're onshoring everything. We're very, very concerned with the actions of the Trump administration. And, President Trump and Secretary Lutnick, they're smart guys. Like, they understand numbers. And when you see 37,000 Americans have lost their jobs, that can't pay the rent or can't pay a mortgage, put food on their table, and this is just going to grow even more. $6.2 billion in tariff-related costs to the auto sector, and that's going to increase. So the auto workers are going to be losing their jobs.
So how is Canada, Premier Ford, preparing for that possibility now? Have you warned your Prime Minister, Mark Carney, that Canada needs to take action?
Absolutely, and we're doing it as we speak right now. We're onshoring manufacturing jobs that typically are American jobs. We have a market here that we can sustain it, and we're lowering taxes. We're making sure we're competitive for companies to come and invest in Canada. Ontario alone last year attracted over $40 billion of investment, creating more jobs, more opportunities. I would much rather work with our greatest ally and closest friend and increase jobs in both countries, and we can do that. We'd be the two strongest nations in the world economically. That's our goal, but unfortunately, President Trump doesn't want to go down that avenue. He wants to hurt the American people, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Do you know when Prime Minister Carney of Canada is next scheduled to speak with President Trump?
I'd imagine over the next few days, Wolf, but we're going to continue the dialogue and communication to the best of our ability.
It's strange to me. Trump has repeatedly said over these past several months that he wants Canada, our neighbor in the north, to become a 51st state of the United States. He hasn't said that, though, in a while. Do you still worry about his rhetoric on that front?
No, I'm not worried about that, because that's never going to happen. We'll be your closest ally and closest friend forever, as we have been for 200 years. And we will outlast the Trump administration. and we'll continue working with our great American partners.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them. Outside of a few senators, and I want to thank them for coming out and standing with not just American people, but their closest friends and allies, which is Canada. And again, we love the Americans. It's unfortunate President Trump decided to go down this road.
And just to be totally transparent, as someone who grew up on the U.S.-Canada border in beautiful Buffalo, New York, I love Canada as well. I love the Canadians and always have. The Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, as usual, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich is joining us from New York right now. Vanessa, countries are paying these new tariffs. What kinds of products are we really talking about?
Yeah, well, Wolf, these are historic tariff levels not seen in nearly a century. We have not seen tariffs at these rates since the 1930s, and following that was the Great Depression. And all countries are being hit. The minimum is 10%, but then it's ratcheted up to 50% for some countries. This is President Trump's big bet. He believes that he's going to shrink trade deficits with other countries and believes that he's going to move manufacturing to the United States. Here are some of the countries that are impacted. Look at that high rate for Brazil. Switzerland, 39%. That's actually higher than the initial tariff of 31% that was announced on Liberation Day. You have India, 25%. Trump has threatened to move that up to 50%. Vietnam, Cambodia, other East Asian countries at 20%, 19%. And the European Union, a major trading partner, Wolf, sitting at 15%. They actually negotiated that tariff level as Trump was trying to bring that even higher. But a significant historic day as nearly all countries now hit with historic tariff levels.
Vanessa, how much is this going to cost average Americans?
Yeah, well, this is going to hit a lot of products that we Americans love to buy. Computers, electronics, coming in from countries like China, Vietnam, Malaysia being hit with 30, 20, 19% tariffs. Clothing and shoes coming in from China, Vietnam, India, going to be hit with 30, 20%, 25 tariffs. Watches now on the list because of Americans' love for Swiss watches. That's going to be tariffed at 39%. Alcohol coming in from the European Union, countries like France and Italy. That's wine and spirits going to be tariffed at 15%, and toys being tariffed at 30 to 20% coming in from China and Vietnam. There are many, many estimates to suggest what this may cost American families. The most recent estimate that we have is from the Yale Budget Lab just this month, projecting that because of all of these tariffs, if they stay in effect, it's going to cost the average family $2,400 a year. Obviously, that is significant as Americans, we know, are worried about these tariffs, worried about their finances, worried about inflation. That is a significant hit to the average American family, Wolf.
Indeed it is. All right, Vanessa Yurkevich, thank you very, very much.